Stay back, Catwoman. Where's the Batmobile? What makes you think I know? You're the best burglar in Gotham City. If anyone knows, you do. Fine. You want to know where your precious Batmobile is? eBay. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Today, I'm revisiting the DC Multiverse Knightfall Catwoman with a look at the Platinum Edition Gray version. Starting off with the packaging, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this section. For one thing, I've already looked at this box. For another thing, I've got a lot of crotch jokes to get to. Or maybe not. I will say there should be a Platinum Edition sticker that mine's missing, and since this is just a chase variant, it still says Knightfall on the side, and has the same purple Catwoman on the back. For those of you out there trying to find literally any version of this figure, here's the UPC, and for packaging, I'm giving this Catwoman 1 whole point. Moving on to presentation, a Catwoman stands at 6 3/4 inches. Even at a quick glance, there's only one thing about this figure I'm sure that's jumping out at you: the bunched up diaper piece. What did you think I was talking about? Of course, this kind of shrinkage isn't uncommon. Granted, for an overpriced figure on eBay, you'd hope that you wouldn't have that problem, though I suppose it is my fault for not looking more closely at the pictures. Even so, I'm going to apply some heat to see if that fixes it. Hit of the blow dryer and we're right as rain. Now you might be thinking, Jason, I've already seen your Knightfall Catwoman video and I know how you feel about it, so what possible difference could turning her gray make? All the difference. My earliest exposure to Catwoman was the 1966 Adam West series. And notice she's in a dark costume. My next exposure to Catwoman was Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. And again, black costume. After that came Batman the Animated Series with her gray costume. Even my first comic book memories of Catwoman are in the gray suit. But then came the purple, and then we got the Ballant design, which is what carried us through the 90s. My problem with the McFarlane version was that I thought it was too realistic and that it didn't have the same personality. And it's frustrating because we know from other McFarlane figures that they could have done it. So seeing the same sculpt in gray has a totally different feeling to me. More like my early exposure to the character. Removed from comparisons to the Knightfall comic, this is a really well sculpted and well painted face. The chip on the nose is my fault. Beautifully painted, vivid green eyes, and I love the evenness of the gray throughout the body and how the satin finish contrasts with the high gloss gloves and boots. Flipping her around, and here's Catwoman from the back. As a Knightfall Catwoman, this figure skewed a bit too far away from Jim Ballant's playful artwork for my taste, but as a late 80s Selina, she's perfect. For presentation, I'm giving Platinum Catwoman 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and since this is the same figure, she'll have the same articulation we saw last time. From the top, and her head's in a dumbbell joint. Can't look up because of the hair. Down is no trouble. Despite the hair, she does get a little bit of tilt, and side to side. Moving on down, and Catwoman can raise her arm up 90 degrees, forward and back with a rotator cuff, bicep swivel cleverly hidden by the glove, double jointed elbows with a great bend. Traveling down the arm, and Selina has McFarlane wrist balls that can swivel and hinge. Moving to the middle, and Catwoman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. She can arch back this far, which is pretty good, and she can hunch forward this far, which is about as good as it gets. Luckily, she does get a pretty decent tilt and twist. Below the waist, and we've got to talk about this Catwoman's balls. You know, her hip balls. For some reason, the paint scuff shows us that they're purple. That leads me to suspect that this is a purple Catwoman, but painted gray. Also, she can kick this high and split this wide. Unfortunately, she doesn't get much twist in the hip, and also unfortunately, nobody thought to hide a thigh cut here. They did at least give her double jointed knees with a very deep bend, more toticulation than you'd expect for a boot like this, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and like me, when this figure got a coat of gray paint, pivot. With the exception of typical McFarlane pitfalls like the diaphragm joint, this cat burglar's every bit as nimble as she needs to be. For posability, Miss Kyle gets 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and all the accessories are the same as well. Catwoman comes with a trading card and a figure stand. Pause here if you want to read it. Additionally, Selina has her signature whip. It's very long and very pliant. Bit of fringe at the tip, great braided texture, and a goodly sized handle. She can hold that whip in either hand, but when Miss Kyle catches Cat Scratch Fever, flavor, this kitty also has claws. But playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others. For a couple of animated series Selenas, and here we have Kenner in DC Collectibles. Unfortunately, the DC Collectibles one is pretty fragile, so her hand snapped off. For a couple of black costume Catwomen, and here we have the DC Designer Series Grey Capullo version, Zoe Kravitz from The Batman, and Arkham City. For all you curious cats out there, here's the Arkham City head on the Knightfall body. You'll have to be a little bit creative with the pegs because they don't actually match, but if you can find a Knightfall Catwoman and either paint her or dye her black, you'll have a great Hush version. Oddly enough, even though this is the gray version, the peg is still purple. Going back to the hips, and it reinforces my theory that the figure's actually purple but painted gray. For the other Gotham City Sirens, and here we have the Arkham City Harley Quinn by Mattel, and Poison Ivy by DC Direct. I'm really impressed with how well these two scale. Pivoting over to some other Batman rogues, and here we have Arkham City Penguin, Arkham City Riddler, great classic version of him just revealed, Arkham City Ra's al Ghul, and Arkham Knight Scarecrow. For a comic style villain, and here's Deathstroke, but for what I see is the main standard Joker options, and here we have DC Rebirth, Mortal Kombat 11, the Three Jokers Clown, and Infinite Frontier. Of course, I know what you really want to see is how well this Catwoman pairs with Batman. For one of my grails that I finally added to my collection, and here we have the DC vs. Dark Horse 2-pack Batman, but for another contender in my upcoming Knightfall Batman Versus, and here we have DC Essentials. These scale surprisingly well. Moving over to McFarlane though, and here's the DC Multiverse Detective Comics 1000, Arkham Knight, which is definitely on the big side, Three Jokers, which I think looks great with this Catwoman, Rebirth, which in general is a smaller figure, but actually works pretty well here, Page Punchers, which is also on the small side, but works pretty well with this Selena, Arkham City, which isn't my favorite, but does still look pretty good, the blue and gray version of Hush, which is a bit on the tall side, and the all-new Knightfall, which despite the lighter shade of gray looks great. For a roll-to-scale comparison, here's Catwoman with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here she is with Stealth Iron Man. You know, Batman's not the only billionaire playboy superhero. Cat got your tongue, I see. McFarlane could have really cheaped out on accessories here, but I'm so glad that they didn't. They could have settled for just the whip or just the claws, but they gave us both, and I really appreciate that. For playability, this kitten gets 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Technically she retails for $20, but trying to find her in stores has been impossible. Some collectors went so far as to order multiples of the regular version, hoping to get this chase variant with them. The rest of us, yours truly included, had to go to eBay, where right now she goes for upwards of $250. Catwoman might be a burglar, but that's highway robbery. Also, if you're wondering / concerned, no, I didn't pay nearly that much. For price, I'm giving Catwoman 0 points for a grand total of 4 out of 5. Sometimes a simple palette swap is all it takes to make a good figure a great figure. That said, is it enough of a difference to be worth it to you? Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.